of women peri and postmenopausal, the symptoms they were dealing with, but how they were really being, these symptoms were really being ignored and not noticed by mainstream medicine. So it's very important to me that we get testing done to see where these hormone levels are at. Yes, I know menopause is a natural process, but in reality, these hormones are very protective even after we go through menopause throughout our whole life. So having balanced hormones help through that transition, that midlife journey, control the symptoms that go along, unfortunately, now with menopause, but also to be able to protect ourselves, be stronger, weigh less, have more muscle mass as women, just that we're more independent, living longer statistically. So that's very important. So let me go ahead and share my screen here, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So again, my name is Dr. Susan Plank, and this is Hormone Harmony. So it's just great to have you here. A little bit about my past is I did grow up Western Pennsylvania. So we grew all of our own food, and we took care of the animals and things. So it was really a great way to live. And so this brings it sort of home for me that the women in my life, my grandmothers, my mother, I think it was a different time, and they didn't suffer as many hormonal symptoms around menopause as what we're experiencing now. So let's go ahead and get started. So the stress response. So the stress response in women earlier in life, and then especially through perimenopause, it affects hormone levels, and we're going to see this in a little bit. But by the time we get to menopause, it really exacerbates our menopausal symptoms. And chronic stress, so that's a hormone, an adrenal stress hormone known as cortisol, and cortisol is a stress hormone. It actually is a belly fat hormone as well. It will interfere with the production of sex hormones, so estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And so the more stress someone is under, that stress level and that stress hormone cortisol is going to affect the hormones and decrease the hormones even further. So we know that, yes, menopause is a natural process. And through that process, initially the hormones start fluctuating until they really start decreasing. But now comes along, and for a woman, these symptoms really take over her whole being, right? There's hot flashes and anxiety and depression and night sweats and intimacy and painful intercourse and vaginal dryness, fatigue. And so a woman's entire sense of being and actually physically being in control of her body adds a whole different stress because she's no longer in control of her body. And so that increased cortisol level actually becomes a catch-22, that now it's driving down the hormones even further at a very specific time in life as a woman's going through menopause. So there's two responses to a stress response: getting turned on and getting turned off. Unfortunately, as we age, and especially if someone's had more stressors earlier in life, we'll see this especially in when there's a loss of a loved one earlier in life. Maybe it's a parent, loss of innocence in different ways. That stress hormone, the stress response, can get turned on, but now it's not so easy to turn off. And so we will see an exacerbation of these symptoms: anxiety, depression, sleep, insomnia, interrupted sleep, things later through menopause. So the stress hormone, so even though there are other hormones that play, cortisol is the primary stress hormone. Okay, it's driving the whole beast, right? So if you feel like I'm going to lose it, it's cortisol kicking in. A lot of times when I'm talking to clients, inherently, or folks that are interested in working with me, if I ask someone about their stress response, they routinely say, "Oh, no, I'm not stressed," or "Nothing really gets to me in life," and it's sort of discounted or poo-pooed, right? And yet, if I keep talking and I say, "Boy, do you ever experience that saying of like, if one more thing happens, if the boss says one more thing, or if one more thing doesn't go my way today, it's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Or I think I'm just going to break down into tears." If you feel that way, that is when your stress response is being triggered. And the more frequently that starts to happen, obviously, then we're looking at more of a chronic stress response. Again, it's being turned on, but it's not being turned off very quickly. Okay. So there are three factors for cortisol especially and specifically for menopausal women. The cortisol level tends to be elevated in postmenopausal women who experience high levels of stress and can lead to a variety of symptoms such as the fatigue, insomnia, anxiety, and depression. High cortisol, we just talked about, interferes with your body's ability to actually produce more of the sex hormones that are actually fluctuating and going out of balance. And so therefore it can speed up that process and cause a greater imbalance around menopause and perimenopause. And cortisol also plays a role in bone health. So those women that we see with a prolonged chronic stress, we see their cortisol level be higher for longer periods of time. And again, this is why it's important to have these hormones checked. This now becomes a risk factor for the woman developing osteoporosis and osteopenia. So cortisol is going to affect bone health. So we want to make sure, again, the stress response is like a switch on your wall, right? Your light switch. If it goes on, we want to make sure it goes off. It just doesn't go on and stay on. So next up here, let me show you. This is now a normal stress hormone cascade. And when I say cascade, folks might not realize that how our hormones are formed, but usually there's precursor hormones and those turn into other hormones. So this is repeatedly what happens. So in the stress, later on, we're going to talk about sex hormones, but in the stress hormones, those hormones are made out of cholesterol. So I want to sort of just talk broadly here. They're made out of cholesterol. Cholesterol makes, then it's the backbone of pregnenolone, which is the mother of all hormones, pregnenolone. Pregnenolone converts to progesterone. Progesterone converts to cortisol. Okay. So what I want you to realize is this now becomes multifactorial. Is if you're a woman that has high blood pressure, a family history of cardiovascular diseases, if you have high lipids, high cholesterol, if you're on Lipitor or cholesterol lowering drug, anything that means your cholesterol is unhealthy, or whether it's naturally or medication wise driven lower, that now can actually affect your body's ability to make these hormones. And again, these hormones
we need them. We need them. We just don't want them to be working all the time. We want them, again, we want them to turn on, but we want them to turn off. But our body needs to be able to make them. Okay. So there's sort of multiple things here. We have to look at, is there enough cholesterol to make the hormones? Is the cholesterol healthy to make healthy hormones? Okay. And then is the stress response, does something hit you like, oh boy, that person really ticked me off. They pulled out in front of me in traffic. And maybe it happens, but boom, you can let it go. If the person pulls out in front of you, you have to slam on your brakes, the cars are screeching, and you know what? It stays with you. That 15, 20 minutes later, you're driving down the road, looking at the guy, you're ready to flip him the bird, you're ticked off. That's an extended stress response. Okay. So now when we see that extended stress response, that's exactly it, that you're driving in the car, but now it keeps going. Each time you have to pass that driver or that car, each time you look at that driver, every time somebody pulls in front of you, you just feel like you're ready to bust out of your skin. You're ready to think, if one more car pulls in front of me, right? It's going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back. Okay, understand how we need to start putting this together and start to look at these things in different levels. Okay, and this cortisol will build up, build up, build up. And now pregnenolone that actually converts into many different, mother of all hormones. So pregnenolone converts into many different hormones, but your body can only make so much at a time. And the conversion of pregnenolone to progesterone only happens at a certain rate. So now if you're on edge and stressed a lot of the time, that's going to hijack those pathways so your body can keep making more and more and more cholesterol, which is what we're seeing here. Okay. Okay, next up, neurotransmitters. So neurotransmitters are very, very similar functions for hormones in the body. And that's why I want to spend some time talking about them. But neurotransmitters can be a cause if a woman going through menopause has more of the emotional aspects of the anxiety, the depression, that sometimes anger, the feelings of loneliness, of not being understood. That's going to come usually more from an imbalance in the neurotransmitters, but also we have to worry about the hormones because hormones and neurotransmitters talk to each other. Okay, that's exactly what they're doing. So they're chemical messengers, as you can see here. And this is very similar, whether it's a neurotransmitter or a hormone. There's going to be a receptor. One's going to release. It has to go talk to the other one. So the hormones are actually little signals. It'd be like me sending you an email, me sending you a piece of mail through the postal service. It's a correspondence. And hormones are going to tell wherever they go what they should be doing. It's the same thing with neurotransmitters. They're going to send a signal, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to work harder, we're going to work less, we're going to hang out for a little bit. That's sort of the lingo, okay, of what they're doing. So neurotransmitters absolutely play a crucial role in brain function, mood, and virtually everything that goes on in our body, especially with the nervous system. So appetite, sleep, all those things that happen in a day that we don't necessarily think about until maybe it's this time at night, and once you eat dinner, you can't stop eating. You want to keep eating. This is when neurotransmitters and hormone imbalances can really start to come into play. Okay. So a couple of those neurotransmitters, epinephrine and norepinephrine, they are related precisely to hormone imbalances, and they can really make some folks feel on edge. They can really make somebody feel amped up, really ready. If there's anger, it's really to come after you. it can really make the person feel very, very anxious. So we tend to see the epinephrine and norepinephrine, if they are kicking in and affecting the hormones, we tend to see those be a little bit higher levels, and we tend to see sort of an amped up, sleeping very little, a lot of nervous energy, like I said, very anxious, that sort of up until maybe this point, menopause in their life, they could eat and burn things off. And so this is an imbalance, what we would see then of epinephrine and norepinephrine, of neurotransmitters and the communication with hormones. Dopamine and serotonin are more sort of calming and feel good. Dopamine is definitely a feel good hormone. It actually is why we sort of get triggered to eat sugar. Research has shown us when we eat sugar, we learn that it makes us feel good. It brings about a happier mood because sugar will actually release dopamine, the neurotransmitter dopamine, in the brain. So the person feels happier. They feel more joyful as they're biting down on that piece of chocolate or diving into a cake or a dessert. But it's the guilt, right? It's the guilt if you're trying to take better care of yourself or lose weight. It's the guilt that comes along after the fact that sort of bites people. But dopamine in and of itself is a very positive, feel-good neurotransmitter. And serotonin is a relaxation. Serotonin is why we sleep as well as we sleep. So again, if we have too much epinephrine and norepinephrine, somebody could be on edge. And then if they don't have enough serotonin and potentially melatonin, their sleep is now going to be very disrupted. Maybe they can fall asleep, but then they wake up, they start to get anxious, the brain starts going, they start to worry, maybe it kicks in a hot flash, and it just becomes a vicious cycle, and it's interrupting their sleep. Their body is unable to heal itself. Okay? So how are hormone levels impacted? We talked about a couple of them so far. Stress is a big one. Stress is probably the number one thing I'm seeing, especially since the pandemic, even though we're sort of out and life has returned to normal for many of us. Stress and chronic stress depletes not only the adrenal stress hormones where they're made in the adrenals, but also the sex hormones. And if it happens to be a time then that a woman is going into peri and postmenopause, it really can throw those balances quite a bit out of kilter. Additionally, what I'm seeing is we're dealing much more with processed foods. Foods are, they go through some packaging, some processing, things are taken out, things are added back in. So we're seeing especially that in the younger folks, but we are seeing that affects hormone levels as we near menopause. And the third way is with the receptors. So maybe you're outside doing some yard work and you just already were starting, right? And you're like, hey, these weeds are getting to me. You pull out the old Roundup, right? Different chemicals, pesticides, sprays on the food. We can take that back to food. Those are entering into our body. So even if you are eating the best diet, even if you say I'm only eating organic, which rarely happens, but even if you're saying that's all I eat, you can't stop it. It's just so prevalent now. These chemicals are in the air. They're in the rain, acid rain. When it comes down, it's saturating the ground. So these chemicals are everywhere. They're found actually in every person's tissues. And what they do is they become what are known as obesogens. So they can cause obesity, but they're also known as endocrine disruptors, where they block the production of hormones, but also can block the receptor sites where the hormone has to go to be able to pass on its signal and communicate. So that is what I'm seeing in practice of my main concerns of how hormone levels through midlife are really being affected. So sex hormones, I thought this was just a really cute picture. Women just, hey, baby, you got it, flaunt it, strut your stuff, right? So estrogen is the primary sex hormone. It's needed at a much higher level than any of the other hormones through our reproductive life, and that's all that menopause is an end to our reproductive life. But unfortunately, this decrease in estrogen really is a triggering mechanism for most women that are experiencing the uncomfortable symptoms that go along with menopause of, hot flashes, night sweats, mood swings, and those types of things. I do want to say that I try to, in a big part of what I do is try to educate younger women, because I want women to realize and know that if they're having hormonal issues earlier in life, if they're using birth control pills, if they have PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, if they're having a lot of irregularity, if they're having problems with their cycles earlier in life, by the time they get to menopause, that monthly cycle might stop, but the other symptoms we see with menopause actually continue, and if not anything else, actually get worse. They actually get much worse. So we want to make sure, for those of you tuning in here and listening, that if you have daughters and nieces and granddaughters, let's have all ages of women start to really pay attention to their cycle and do things as naturally as possible, because even the variety of birth control pills now, we're seeing the research on those affecting receptors, hormone receptors. We're seeing higher infertility rates, and so they're not really a fix for any of those menstrual problems that women are experiencing. They're just sort of a sledgehammer that forces hormones to, to sort of take away the symptoms happening in a woman during her menstrual years. So estrogen, like I said, it's the top dog, right? It's the one of most importance. And for those of you listening, I just want to mention as an aside, if you're using any creams or lotions, anything like that, I want you to be aware that any of those, as we go through these hormones, they can be transmitted through skin, typically to your partner, okay, and to anyone that you are intimate with. So I want you to be aware that, and I bring this up with estrogen because I have male clients that actually their estrogen levels are getting higher for some of the reasons we talked about earlier. Obesogens and endocrine disruptors really hit guys hard. But also too, ladies, if you're using any creams or lotions as a sort of a hormone support, please realize that that is going to have an effect on your partner. Also too, the other way around, right? If a guy is using some type of testosterone cream or lotion, that also can have an effect on women as well. But to just finish up on estrogen is protective for women. Research is coming out that's really challenging that study from decades ago that was stopped short and actually controlled by drug companies, is that even women going through breast cancer, okay, now this becomes a very personal choice and decision, and they should talk about it with their doctors. But even women with breast cancer can be protected with estrogen. Okay, so we want to sort of have an open mind, and this is why the testing is so important, and a personalization, an individual plan for each woman is just a necessity. So moving on to testosterone then. Testosterone, boy, is it important. It really, really is important. If I have a woman, a client come to me and say, you know what, doc, my husband's getting frustrated. I have absolutely no interest in sex. He wants to get a little frisky and I could care less. I honestly could care less. I love him. I know it's important to him, but it just doesn't happen for me anymore. If that happens, typically, I really want to see the woman's testosterone level. Okay. Also, too, if a woman is really losing their muscle, if they were pretty fit and now they're still trying to, take care of themselves, do some exercise, walking, go to the gym, but their muscle mass just isn't there. That's why these smart scales can be so fascinating and informative nowadays, because they let us know these intricate biomarkers of our health, of how much water you have, how much muscle you have, where your fat percent is, belly fat, visceral fat, the most dangerous kind. But testosterone, it is going to do the same thing for women that it does for men. So you're going to hear a guy complain of fatigue, weakness. They're not as strong as they used to be. They can't work as hard as they used to be. They have troubles with sexual performance or lack of libido and desire. All those are exactly the same for women. So keep in mind that all the hormones start to decrease at menopause, but different ones go out of balance more so. And so therefore it's going to change the individual woman's symptoms that she is experiencing. Okay. So testosterone definitely feeling weaker, feeling more fatigued, feeling tired, feeling like you can't make it through the day. Of course, we want to do a good, thorough check, but especially around menopause, losing muscle mass, and then also starting to fall, instability, risk of injury. These are all related to testosterone. So the causes of hormone imbalance, and a big one, I'll tell you right off the start, is chronic dieting. So a lot of women, and again with menopause, because estrogen decreases, what happens? The decrease in estrogen starts to lead to more belly fat, right in the belly. So we see the size, the measurement, right, of the belly measurement starts to increase as estrogen goes down. And so if a woman maybe struggled with her weight earlier, now she's really going to, because now we're going to add sort of hormonal weight on top of other weight issues. And so chronic dieting is a stressor, and the cortisol is going to go up. Low calorie eating is a stressor, and your body will see it as such, and it will increase your cortisol levels. Eating the wrong foods. Okay, if you're eating a lot of processed and packaged foods, high fatty foods, fast foods, those types of things, that is going to affect your hormones and hormone balances through this time. Any type of stress, not just stress related to the weight and prior in life trying to lose weight, but any stress, loss of your partner, loss of a loved one, a parent, maybe you have a special needs, a child or grandchild that you're trying to sort of guide along through life. Those can be added stressors. Relationships get harder, especially if there tends to be these intimacy issues, and it can lead to miscommunications. Okay. Toxic overload, which we talked about, coming from food and just honestly our environment. Now, our environment is just full of toxins. A high body fat percentage. This takes on a whole life of its own, because fat cells will produce estrogen. Fat cells will produce hormone. Unfortunately, it's not healthy estrogen, but it's going to go in and sort of gum up the system. So we want to make sure that we get the weight under control and we keep it in a healthy range, minimize, especially like I said, that visceral fat that's around the organs, the belly fat, because it is dangerous and it will lead to unhealthy estrogen and a condition known as estrogen dominance. Too much estrogen, and things go bad as well. And then honestly, just aging, right? It's just the aging process that as we age, our hormones are going to just decrease over time. But there are natural things that we can do to help support those and keep ourselves balanced. So the signs and symptoms of hormone imbalance for women at menopause, functionally, we have these two types of problems when hormones are out of balance. One is it's a functional problem. And what's that mean? It means it affects you in the moment. Okay. A hormone imbalance, it's going to affect you now. And it's going to give you the uncomfortable symptoms of how you're thinking, how you feel, how you see the world, how you act. It's going to be now. And that's why I started off with talking about, stressors and the effects of hormones and also neurotransmitters, because these are all affected. Okay. So one is the functional symptoms. Okay. That is the hot flashes. That is, right? That is the night sweats. That's the poor sleep. That's functional, but it's happening to you right now. The other is prolonged. It's in the future. And if we don't get the hormone balance now, these hormone imbalances will affect your future. They will make you less healthy into your future. They're a cause of diabetes. They're a cause of heart disease, hypertension. Okay. They're a cause of cancer even. So many chronic illnesses that we see later in life, hormone imbalance is at least plays a part, if not can be a cause of speeding this whole process up. So I want you to start to look at that, how you feel about things in two different ways. One is you might be miserable now, you're almost afraid to try to go to sleep at night because a hot flash kicks on, or you wake up and you can't get back to sleep, and you're going to be exhausted tomorrow. Those are what I call the functional problems of today. They're what's bothering you now. And you just keep thinking, well, I'm gonna, menopause ends, I'm gonna get through it. But I'm telling you, I have women in their 70s that for a decade or more have had hormone imbalances. Okay. So if we don't get things balanced, now we start to look at an increase of chronic health issues affecting blood sugar and insulin, like I said, diabetes, heart disease, hypertension, cancer even. Okay. So food absolutely matters. I have a hormone balancing diet. It's what next week we're going to have our Hormone Harmony Clinic, where we're going to get folks are going to get the hormones tested. We're going to put you on a hormone balancing diet where we give you the shopping list. We give you all the recipes. All you have to do is make great tasting food. We're going to get you starting to feel better and maybe even lose some weight in the first couple of days. And we're also going to start to do the hormone receptor cleanse, a detox. But it matters what food is going in. It matters how much fiber you have. It matters, ladies, how much lean protein you have. These are very, very important factors. It matters how much water you're drinking. And then it matters where that water is going. So if you're drinking water and is going in and it's going right back out, 15, 20 minutes later, I can pretty much guarantee you that your cells, your fluids are not moving through your body. They're just going in and going right back out again, which is an indicator of hormone imbalance and unhealthy cell membranes. So the hormone balancing diet, like I said, I've developed it. It's a whole food, anti-inflammatory. I want folks to really feel good because chances are you haven't felt good for a while. I really want to, and we're not counting calories. This is not a counting calories. Trust me, the foods I'll have you eating, the recipes, they're delicious. They're easy to make. It tastes good, right? And you just feel better. You feel better in days eating this anti-inflammatory hormone balancing diet. Okay. Well, like I said, we're also going to do a hormone detox. That's part of the Hormone Harmony Clinic. We are going to make sure it's a supplement we're going to send everybody that signs up for it. We're going to get those receptors cleaned off. So not only is it good for stress hormones and sex hormones, which is primarily what this webinar is about, but think about it, women, again, PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, they've taken birth control pills, the toxins we're talking about, insulin resistance. If you have a parent that, is diabetic, maybe both your parents are diabetic and you're wondering, is it in my genes? My blood sugar has been going up. Am I at risk? This is why it's so important. We're going to do the hormone receptor detox and get all those hormones, all the toxins off the receptor so all those hormones can start communicating clearly and easily with the receptors again, probably more so than what they've done in years. And the big thing, like I said, we're going to do the hormone testing. It's very, very important. I know some of you, have had your hormones tested. A lot of you, most of you, though, haven't. It's unusual most of the time to get hormones tested. And even in fertility treatments, I have clients that they go for fertility issues and they don't even get their hormones checked. So this is a specialized hormone test. It's actually a little kit we'll be sending out. We're going to do it on saliva, so you don't have to worry about, if you're afraid of blood, you don't have to worry about that. We're going to get 4 readings throughout the day. So we're going to see your hormones, cortisol level throughout the whole day to see if part of your day is more stressful than another. Can we zero in what's going on? Can we put in some nutritional supplement and lifestyle options for you, recommendations to get you feeling better and supporting you through that time? Okay. And to do that, like I said, we will be using hormone balancing supplements that contain adaptogens. Adaptogens are herbal formulas, mostly Eastern medicine, herbal formulas that if something is too high, you give an adaptogen, it naturally brings it down. If something's too low, you can give the same adaptogen and it'll bring it up. So a good example is somebody's energy, right? If I have somebody that's really very anxious and it's high, right? We're talking about that epinephrine, norepinephrine. I give them an adaptogenic herb. It'll help them calm down. And yet if I have somebody that's really, man, it's hard to make it through the day. They just don't have the motivation. The energy's not there. That just, man, it's just tough. Life is tough, right? The same exact adaptogen, the same herbal remedy can pick that person up and give them some comfort and have them start to feel better. So I'm really very excited. Great products we have, and the hormone receptor detox, phenomenal product. Okay. So, hey, we're at the end here. Thanks so much for tuning in. I appreciate it. Cheers to you. Like I said, our hormone harmony clinic, it does start next Wednesday. Okay, May 3rd. We are doing the saliva testing. Okay, we're doing the hormone detox. We're doing the hormone diet. We get started next Wednesday. So I would love to have you be part of it. If you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Let's talk. Okay, let's see what's going on. Let's figure out what symptoms you're having. You will be able in your Hormone Harmony workbook, that link I shared with you, you'll be able to go through those pages step by step and sort of challenge yourself to really be honest. What are the emotional symptoms that you're experiencing? What are the stress related? What are the physical symptoms? Once we start to see these symptoms and really when they started, we start to get a fuller picture. And then we start to take into account considerations of other symptoms, or if there has been weight gain, if there's been stressors in life, we can really start to get a full picture. And the hormone testing just brings it all home. The hormone testing lets me develop the personalized plan for each and every one of you. So again, thanks so much for being here. Let me see any questions. I'm not seeing any questions pop up. Thank you so much. Take care. My name's Dr. Susan Plank. This has been the Hormone Harmony webinar. Thanks so much for being here. Have a great night. Take care now. Bye-bye.